Alright, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another podcast. Coming up on the show today, we're going to be talking about some of the world's creepiest, scariest places. We're going to take a look inside some of the world's most haunted places. And then we're going to take a look inside of ghost hunting, talking with the dead. So I hope you guys are ready to get going. It is Saturday, August 27th, 2022, and the season finale of Mysteries of the Paranormal is coming at you right now. Alright, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the podcast. It has been a long time, hasn't it? I think it's been over a month since we've done a podcast, but today is the season finale of season 1 of the Mysteries of the Paranormal. We will start season 2 the first week of September. But I have been planning this season finale for a while. That's why I haven't been doing any podcasts, because I've been trying to gather up some things to talk about for the season finale. And boy, do we have a lot. We're gonna take ghost hunting and talking with the dead. We're going to look at the world's scariest places, and then some of the world's most haunted places. What's up, Paranormal Underworld? So if you guys don't know, my Twitter did end up getting hacked this morning, but I do have a new Twitter. Y'all can go follow that. But today's podcast, with being the season finale, is going to be a wild one. This is the season finale of season 1. Like I said, season 2 will begin sometime next week. But starting off with the first topic of today, we're going to take a look at the world's scariest places as soon as we come back from this break. Alright, we are back, guys. And starting off with number 1 is no other than the Voodoo Walmart. Buffalo skins, powdered chameleons, human skulls, dried cobras, and dog paws are just a few of the dubious treasures you'll unearth at West Africa's Akadeswela Fetish Market, the largest voodoo bazaar in the world. Witches would have easily scored Eye of Newt and Toe of Frog here. Established in 1863, the open-air venue, also known as the March de Features, spreads its witchy wares over blocks in Lome, the capital of the Republic of Togo. Originating in West Africa and later following the slave trade to Haiti, voodoo is an animistic religion with a pantheon of lower supernatural beings that can intercede for good or ill in the lives of mortals, though other markets offer the same talismans. This features on-site healers known as fetish priests who can supposedly cure what ails you by channeling the gods and offering prescriptions. No health insurance required. Lest this all seems sinister to the uninitiated, one guide interview for the website Atlas Obscura said that the market's magic is always white, not black. In other words, it's never used for evil. No animals are harmed in the making of the mojo either or not, he claimed. In the wake of a government crackdown on poaching, for instance, lions' heads are strictly off limits, but less kingly creatures will do in a pinch. It's like Western medicine, he said. When you don't find a specific product, you can only use the generic version. Number 2. Located in Pajama Castle, Slovenia, is the Halls of Horror. You can hear footsteps or voices talking behind the wall after the sun goes down. If you are the last one, you have to go in and check the castle, see if there's anybody else in it. I don't like to be here when it's dark. First constructed in the 1200s, an abandoned Stone Age settlement on a cliff overlooking the river Lakva, the 4-story castle contains the remains of hidden passageways, holes for pouring boiling oil on attacking enemies, a treasure chest, and naturally a torture chamber. Its wall still holds the corpses of enemies who were sealed within and left to suffocate. Nobody went down to collect them. Over the centuries, such luminaries as the Knights of Augsburg and Archduke Charles of Austria have called the rocky redoubt home. Until it became a museum after World War II, the castle's most prominent residence was arguably the 15th century knight Irzum of Pajama. Revered by local folk as a Slovenian Robin Hood who rebelled against the aristocracy and was eventually betrayed by a servant and then killed by the emperor's men. He is widely thought to be the source of much of the structure's physic activity. In other words, despite his death, it seems that he has never left. Number 3 is a very popular one located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. More specifically, the Eastern State Penitentiary, Al Capone's prison cell. It looked like a heat mirage, a large, shimmering, upright blob that was moving slowly to the right. The notorious site is also the source of a house legend, though its details have grown fuzzy over the years. At some point, an employee known as Gary the Locksmith was working in the cell when he felt a terrible pressure on his chest as if a powerful man was gripping him from behind. When he turned around, no one was there, but he later discovered that an inmate had murdered a guard in the very same spot. Now a national landmark, the penitentiary was established in 1829 by Quakers who believed the key to rehabilitating criminals was enforced isolation. It didn't quite work out. There was misery and violent deaths. The penitentiary's most infamous resident was Al Scarface Capone, reportedly thought that he was haunted by a victim of his 1929 St. Valentine's Day massacre. The sightings continued to this day. One tour guide passed the closed doors of cell block 12, only to find them wide open just moments later. Some visitors have followed mysterious voices, whispers, giggling, and found nothing but dank air, though the penitentiary's administrators take pains to distance. They tell it to Al Capone. Alright. Number 5, located in the Plague Islands of Italy, the Vampire Graveyard. In 2009, University of Florence anthropologists unearthed a female vampire skull, complete with a brick shoved into its mouth. In a mass grave on Lazaretto Nuovo, an island in the Venice Lagoon, dating from 1576. The grave contained victims of a plague that had decimated Venice that year. Some of the deceased Venetians believed were vampires, also called shroud eaters, because bacteria in the victim's mouth corroded over the cloth that covered their faces, exposing the teeth. To kill the vampire, you had to remove the shroud from its mouth, which was its food like the milk of a child, and put something uneatable in there. According to anthropologist Matteo Baroni, Lazzaro Novio wasn't the only plague burial ground in the Vietnam Lagoon. In 1432, the city had established its first quarantine hospital on another island, filled with ceaseless groans, foul odors, and smoke from burning corpses. It was, according to one, after the plague hit the city, even harder in 1576 and again in 1630. Thousands of infected people were sent to other Vietnamese islands, including Pavagla, located between Vence and Lido. Unlike the Lazaretto Islands, which now featured guided tours, all the islands remain uninhabited, overgrown, and shunned. The island's most famous apparition is Little Maria, the ghost of a young victim who allegedly stands by the water's edge on moonless nights, crying for her parents. In the 1920s, the opening of an insane asylum led to the legend that an evil doctor prone to administering brutal medical experiments had fallen from the island's bell tower under mysterious circumstances. Following the closing of the institution in 1968, the island was abandoned. Untouched by fishermen and gondoliers, the island was put up for auction by the cash-strapped Italian government in 2014. An Italian businessman eventually paid $704,000, but the sale was subsequently annulled when the government decided that the amount was insufficient. The businessman was hoping to build a luxury motel. Wow. Trying to build a motel on top of all that? Could only imagine what would happen there. The next one is located in Raynham Hall, England, the Brown's Lady Lair. The first recorded sighting of Raynham Hall's famous ghost occurred during a 1835 Christmas gathering at the Norfolk, England estate. Two guests claimed they saw an aristocratic brown lady named for the color of her brocade dress as they approached their bedrooms one night. The next evening, one of them glimpsed the female phantom one more time, but this time he noticed gaping black holes where her eyes should have been. Supposedly the ghost of Lady Dorothy Townsend, whose jealous husband kept her imprisoned in the hall until her death in 1726. The Brown Lady was seen again in 1836 by novelist Captain Marryat, trying to prove that the Revenant was in fact a hoax. Perpetrated by local smugglers to keep people away, the writer came face to face with the ghost. The figure halted of its own accord before the door behind which he stood. Holding the lighted lamp she carried to her features, grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him. The world at large did not glimpse the putative phantom until 1936, when a photographer and his assistant were documenting the hall for a Country Life magazine. While setting up a shot, the assistant later claimed they saw a vaporoid form gradually assuming the appearance of a woman coming down the wooden staircase. The result was promptly published in the magazine and remains allegations as the most famous spirit photograph in history. The next one, located in the Tower of London in England, the Deadly Dungeon. There's only you and I here, a disembodied and ungrammatical voice supposedly said to the Tower of London night watchman Arthur Crick, who had stepped along his nightly rounds to rest his feet. "Just let me get this bloody shoe on," Crick responded, "and there'll only be you." The complex of towers on the River Thames, now home to everything from the crown jewels to an axe, probably used in the last public beheading on Tower Hill, is widely considered the most haunted building in England. Construction of the tower began in 1066 under William the Conqueror. Not surprising, the most storied part of the structure is the oldest. The White Tower is where the ghost known as the White Lady wanders. Her perfume is often smelled at the entrance to the chapel of St. John's. What's up, Trespass? A headless ghost, said to be that of Anne Boleyn, is sometimes seen near the Queen's house, close to where she was executed on Tower Green, and the 9-day Queen, Lady Jane Grey, was reportedly spotted by the guards on February 12th of 1957, the 403rd anniversary of her death by execution. Maybe the saddest of them all are the wraths of Edward IV's young sons, Edward V and Richard. In 1483, they were sent to the Tower after being declared illegitimate by their uncle Richard, who may have also had them murdered. He then became King Richard III. In 1674, the skeletons of two young boys were discovered beneath a staircase. but the brothers' spirits continue to be seen in white nightgowns clutching each other in horrified terror. The next one, located in Bolivia, the Road of the Dead. If you think your commute is bad, consider the drive along Camino de Yungas, a Paris narrow thoroughfare that runs 40 miles from Bolivia's capital to the western city of Coroco, called the world's most dangerous road, as it reaches a height of 15,000 feet through the sheer cliffs, waterfalls, and hairpin turns, often obscured by dust, vegetation, and cloud forests, not to mention unpredictable weather. Though a new route linking the regions was opened in 2006, the old road, reportedly once the site of 200 to 300 deaths per year, is still used. Wooded and stone crosses mark the spots where travelers reach the end of their own roads. The local believes their restless spirits remain. The stray dogs that roamed the old road was said to be the souls of the people who died there, so people always fed them, said Dwayne Patterson, general manager of Gravity Bolivia, which organizes mountain biking expeditions on the road. One man told me that he passed an old woman walking on the road at night and stopped to give her a lift. He tells life. She got into the back seat, but as they were talking, he looked into the rearview mirror and she was gone. For protection, road warriors traditionally make offerings. A goddess revered in the Andes at the Camino's highest point. They gave her a few sprinkles of alcohol because it used to honor her. Many drivers keep a big bottle in their cars. However, they do calm nervous bikers who remain unconvinced by the alcohol's efficacy. I tell them that my mom downed it and she loved it. All right. We're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with the Maze of Madness, located in a psychiatric hospital in South Korea. We will be back in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. Alright, welcome back, guys. We're back located in South Korea, the Maze of Madness. The ruins of the psychiatric hospital have been moldering in South Korea's province since the mid-1990s, when the structure was abandoned for reasons that still remain a mystery. Some suggest that plumbing problems or financial improprieties were to blame. But urban legends claim, as they so often do, that the institution was plagued by a series of strange deaths, the result of horrifying medical experiments that were eventually traced to a homicidal doctor who promptly fled to America. Now the ramshackle ruins are filled with mildewed mattresses, broken windows, and Korean and English graffiti. Thanks in part to its sinister appearance, it has become known as one of the 3 most haunted sites in South Korea. The others being a house filled with disembodied voices in rural Yeongdeuk and Newbom Garden restaurant, which allegedly closed because ghosts drove the owners out. It's not entirely accurate to call the hospital abandoned, because like many places of its ilk, it has become a frequent destination for trespassing urban thrill seekers. Though most of them don't ever uncover supernatural secrets, some have reportedly been scratched by unseen entities as they walk through these halls. And the last one of the world's scariest places is no other than the Temple of Death, located in Templo Mayor, Mexico. In 1978, electrical workers digging in Mexico City's historic center uncovered an 8-ton stone carving of Aztec goddess. Suspecting a major archaeological find, the Mexican government controversially decided to destroy the site's Spanish colonial buildings and solve the subterranean mystery. This led to the discovery of the ruins of the Temple Mayor, aka the Great Temple, the Aztec city founded in 1325. Dedicated to the god of war, the god of rain, and the Templo Mayor was the Aztecs' Axis Mundi tour guide. It was like a giant altar where human sacrifices were made to the gods. The perfect offering consisted of the flesh and bones of the Aztecs' enemies. The heads were war trophies that were boiled and cleaned, then the insides were eaten before the skulls were set on the stone altars. The fun and games ended when the Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez arrived in 1519, destroying the civilization soon after and covering the temple area, now a World Heritage Site, with structures such as the Metropolitan Cathedral that likely covered further ruins. In fact, a recent excavation found a tower made of more than 60,000 skulls, a monument to ancient murder in the modern megalopolis. Wow. That is the world's scariest places. The next one is the world's most haunted places. There's only 5 on this list, so I'm going to run through them pretty quick. The Psycho House. Ed Guyon's farm. Somewhere in the plain field of Wisconsin, cemetery lies an unmarked grave belonging to the man who, thanks to his Hollywood influence, may be America's most infamous serial killer. In the same burial ground lies what remains of the woman he dug up in the 1950s and turned into a variety of handicrafts. Not surprisingly, the place is said to be haunted by the restless soul of one of the fiend's victims, unnamed in death, as in life, prowling the lonely graves. In November of 1957, Plainfield was shaken to its core after 58-year-old Bernice Warden, owner of the local hardware store, disappeared. Her son told the local sheriff that he'd found blood in the store and that a 51-year-old local handyman named Guian had recently come in looking for antifreeze. Tracking Guian down to the ramshackle, isolated farmhouse where the odd man had lived alone since the death of his mother, the sheriff found Warden hanging by her feet, decapitated and eviscerated in the shed. But that was only the beginning of the horrors. In the garbage-strewn house, law enforcement officers found chairs reupholstered with fatty human skin, a soup bowl made from a human skull, a shade pool made off lips, masks made from human faces, a belt made of female nipples, a vest made from a female torso, embalming supplies and anatomy books and detective magazines that Guian read by kerosene lamps. There were also human heads, one belonging to Mary Hogan, who had run a Plainfield tavern and had mysteriously disappeared in 1954. In the end, the remains of 11 women were discovered in the house. 2 of them were Hogan and Warden. Guian claimed to have shot to death. 9 had been, he said, unearthed from local graves. Many of them had been tanned as with taxidermy, their flesh used by Guian as garments. The only immaculate part of the dwelling was the nailed-shut room that had belonged to his mother. The fanatically religious woman had subjected her unstable son to ceaseless rants about the evils of women. Her alcoholic husband, George, died in 1940, followed by Guian's brother, Henry, under mysterious circumstances in 1944, leaving Guian to share the house with his mother, the love of his life. But when Augusta died in 1945, Guian found himself alone. Well, almost, the bachelor started digging up graves, using the remains of female bodies for company. He dressed in woman's clothes, some fashioned from corpses, wishing that he had been born a woman. Guian's oblivious neighbors found him mostly harmless. He talked obsessively, for instance, about crime and women. Former girlfriend, we discussed every murder we heard about. Declared insane in 1958, Guian died of cancer at age 77 in Mendota Mental Health Institute. But his perverse legacy endures, having inspired some of the greatest horror films ever made, among the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Silence of the Lambs, and little-known Deranged. But the most enduring product of the Guian legend began in 1959 when writer Robert Bloch published a potboiler called Psycho, which Alfred Hitchcock turned into the classic 1960 film. In it, Norman Bates, a character based on Guian, says a boy's best friend is his mother. Number 2 is the Edgar Allan Poe House/Museum, located in Baltimore, Maryland. In the early morning hours of September 27th, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe left Richmond, Virginia on a steamer heading to Baltimore. He wasn't seen again until nearly a week later, when he was found delirious, probably drunk and wearing someone else's clothes, in a Baltimore tavern. Hospitalized, the great writer raved, repeatedly shouting someone's name until on October 7th he murdered, "Help my poor soul," and later that day he died. Now a museum, the Edgar Allan Poe House on Baltimore's Amity Street, is where the writer lived in the early 1830s. It is locals say haunted. Some have seen the spirit of an old stout woman dressed in clothing of the early 1800s. Others have reported visitations as Poe himself. Doors and windows open and shut when no one is there. Visitors sometimes feel persistent tapping on their shoulders, and a neighbor has seen candlelight lights bobbing in the museum after closing time. Poe's ghost has also been seen in the town's port area, Fells Point, where the writer seems to have wandered during his final days. As a spirit affectionately named Edgar is said to prowl the Horse You Came In On saloon, Baltimore's oldest pub. And beginning in 1949, a mysterious person known as the Phantom Toaster toasted the writer with a glass of cognac at his grave every January 19th, which is Edgar Allan Poe's birthday, leaving behind the unfinished brandy bottle and 3 red roses. But after vanishing in 2009, the toaster was thought to be, quoth the Raven, nevermore, until a new toaster reignited the tradition starting in 2016. The next one, located in the old Royal Victoria, is Montreal's Haunted Hospital. Looming over the city on the south slope of Mount Royal, the Vic saw plenty of distressed patients during its 122-year history, but some of them may have never checked out, though presumably not because they liked the food. After one man died in the cardiac unit, the nurses shut his door, but when they returned with his family, they found the room locked from the inside. A napping nurse once wrote to see a white smoky light hovering above her, followed by 2 other apparitions. And one patient claimed that after speaking to the specter of an old woman, he found himself lying in a pool of blood. In addition to the usual knockings and flickering lights, the Vic once contained a haunted painting. It showed a house in which patients saw a sinister old woman staring from the window. A few times she even left the house and looked around before going back inside. Not surprisingly, the animated art was removed in April of 2015. The operating hospital of the Vic was moved to a new location, and while McGill announced in 2018 plans to turn the area into a world-class pavilion, the hospital's persistent patients may never be discharged. And the last one of the world's most haunted places is no other than the Forbidden City in Beijing. It is mine, a disembodied voice was reportedly heard to declare in Beijing's Forbidden City during an exhibition of concubines' jewelry, but greedy ghosts don't need the lure of jade to hunger for what they've lost. After closing, gatekeepers at one of the world's largest palaces supposedly hear music and see ladies in waiting, wandering the grounds with eunuchs, and one recent tourist asked the guide why the floors were raised under the doors. He was told because ghosts can't jump. If any structure in the world has the right to be haunted, it's the 9,000-room imperial palace that served 25 Chinese emperors from the Ming dynasty to the end of the Qing dynasty, about 1421 to 1911. It has, needless to say, seen more than its share of intrigue and violence, not to mention everyday heartache and greed. Which spectral concubine wanted her jewelry back? Indeed, the palace was created in a cauldron of grief and bloodshed after his nephew became emperor in the late 14th century. Prince Zhu rebelled, assisted by eunuchs, killing his relatives, loyalists, and establishing a new stronghold as a Yongle emperor in Beijing, where he embarked on the creation of the fabled city. As to Beijing itself, there are plenty of supposedly haunted spots. Gongwangfu Mansion and Lillian Street among them. But we so often associate hauntings with decaying old buildings. And Beijing, like the rest of China, is determined to raise reminders of its past in the name of progress. And that is the world's most haunted places. We're going to take one more final quick break, and we'll be back with the final topic here in the season finale of Season 1 of the Mysteries of the Paranormal. Alright guys, we are back. Let's see if we can find a decent thing to talk about here. This will be the last thing we talk about here in today's podcast. lot of stuff in here, but it's talking about this and that and what it is and what evidence people has gotten on investigations. Cameras. Ooh. There's a good one. Here we go. This is called The Entity in the Attic. Caught using an SLS camera. Located in a house in Lakeland, Florida by investigators Amy and Adam Carey. This was a very unassuming suburban home where they suddenly, out of the blue, started having pretty violent paranormal activity. We always think there's a reason why a haunting is happening. Maybe they want something or need something. I think this was the first time that we experienced spirits warning of potential danger. When we set up at a location, we try everything, so we run the SLS camera for a lot of the time during our investigation, even though it may not always work. We probably get responses on the SLS 1 every 4 or 5 cases. It's not super common, but we always run it. They called us in because the homeowner opened the attic. The very moment he did, a box cutter flew out of the attic towards his head onto the ground. And that was obviously very frightening and startling. It was the biggest thing that happened that made them go, why it made them really terrified. So we were sitting in the back room one night using the SLS camera, and this person appeared. This figure appeared in it, and we started trying to talk to this person, and all of a sudden we saw another taller figure appear and grab the hand of the first figure and literally drag this person out of the room, and they disappeared. It's like they don't want to talk. When we started digging into the history of the home, we found out that there had been an elderly couple who lived there. And what's more, the house was built on a water table that was too high for anything to be built. There was no house ever supposed to be built. The elderly couple had been plagued with mold, and they were convinced, especially the wife, that the mold was causing health problems for them, but they couldn't leave. They did not have the means to, and they couldn't sell the house because of the certain situation. So they literally felt like they were living in this house that was killing them because of the mold, and ultimately they did both die due to lung issues. I was able to find all of her notes. She had gone to the city council. She had done all this stuff, but after they died, the attic was sealed off because there was mold. And the home opener had opened the sealed attic. We found out that the family had opened it and mold had started to grow in one of the baby's rooms. But the other thing that was at some point someone came in and rerouted all this drainage and had fixed the issue at great expense, which the couple would have never been able to do, and it was fine. It did not have the same issues. We had to eventually have a family meeting. We had to go to the living room and have a family meeting about the situation and just let them know what we know what had happened. We told them we understood that they were just trying to warn the current homeowners that this could be a potential problem. We figured out from this same SLS moment that this was the couple and the husband was like, get out of here. We also get really amazing results from the SLS at Linville Manor in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. There was a claim that somebody walks through this ballroom area and they are visible from outside. Amy and I had both seen what appeared to be a shadow figure in the same area. What the frick? That was weird. Okay, that was like super duper 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 weird. I have no music playing. No music playing at all. I have my headset on right now. My podcast headset. I have my headset on right now. And as soon as I stopped reading that sentence, I heard a cat meow in my left ear. It wasn't my right ear. It was only my left ear. That was freaking weird, Maria. You're in here. That was freaking weird. I was just reading something. As soon as I stopped reading that sentence, I heard a cat meow in my left ear. That was very weird. I have no music playing at all. No music at all. I have my headset on reading this book about this person doing an investigation on an entity in an attic. And as soon as I finished the sentence I was on, I heard a cat meow come through my left ear. That was very weird. And I have no cat in this house whatsoever. No cat is in this house. I don't even own a cat. That was very weird. As soon as I got done reading that sentence, it was just like a small meow in my left ear. No music, no doubt. Oh my God, that freaked me out. I'm sorry, guys, but that freaked me out right there. I just stopped in my tracks. Because as soon as I got done reading that sentence, cat meow in my ear. And it was only in my left ear and one in my right ear. And I have my headset on. So that was very weird. But okay, I'm gonna just let that slide right on beside me and get back into this investigation story. Weird, but I do have some strange occurrences in here because I have dolls and all my equipment sitting right beside me, so I'm gonna just let that slide right by me and jump back in. If I hear it again, then something's. But okay. Sorry about that. Whew. Still a little freaked out. That freaked me out because I wasn't expecting it. I just got done reading a sentence and then pow, a small little meow. Very weird. But let's go. Now I gotta figure out where I was. Okay. There was a claim that somebody walks through this ballroom area and they are visible from outside. Amy and I had both seen what appeared to be a shadow figure to the same area. I feel what was interesting about the spirit was it kept stopping in a doorway that was not original to the house. So we were sitting in an area that was a later addition onto it. So it was almost that the spirit was hesitant to go past this barrier that was, I think, a new thing for it. So Amy was using the SLS camera pointing in the direction of where this person is seen or this entity is seen walking. And sure enough, the stick figure shows up and it gets bigger as it's coming closer towards Amy and me. Because it's moving towards her, we captured this on camera. She asked it to move close to her and it did. And she asked it to wave and it did. So we are able to determine it's an intelligent spirit. Knowing this gives us hope that maybe we can get answers from this person or the entity and find out what it wants. our assumption is that the shadow figure and what we caught on the SLS is the same entity, and I think because it has interacted with us, it has waved at us, and that's why we assumed it was someone intelligent. We weren't able to get any names, but the SLS gave us a clue. Maybe the guys that own that place now, perhaps they can keep working on it to try to figure out who this person is and why they insist on staying. So that is the entity in the attic, and that's the only one we're going to do for today. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We had a strange occurrence go on right here at the end. Some weird cat noise just came through right through my ear, and I don't know what that was, but it definitely freaked me out. But I'm just gonna let it slide by me and see if anything else happens throughout the day and go from there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is the season finale for season 1. Season 2 will pick back up next week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys on the premiere of season 2 starting next Friday, September 2nd.